Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks on Tuesday, the 21st day of July, year of our Lord 2020. Welcome to the John Moore Show. We begin our show with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Prep tip of the day, I want to encourage all of you to inventory your food supply and make sure that everything is in good condition for our consumption and that you've got a 2-year supply. We have a patient waiting in the green room, my friend Steve Ben-Nun. Steve is the proprietor of the website IsraeliNewsLive.org. I say again, IsraeliNewsLive.org. A great place to get updated on what's going on in this world. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, John.
You've recently gone public with information from a woman who is an engineer with FEMA. Tell us about that.
That's actually something that only is yet another confirmation, John. In fact, I got a call from a friend of mine that works with the Pentagon directly as a contractor, and he said to me, it is the things that I have been speaking about from the information she's disseminated to us is nearly verbatim the information they know directly from the generals in the Pentagon. But this lady here is an engineer with FEMA. She has, and I'm just going to kind of go slowly with this information so that I can disseminate it the best that I possibly can. But she contacted me. She's been listening to our program for quite some time. And she said, first she confirmed that the things that I've been saying are things that she has been well aware of for quite some time. And she stated to me that we are facing the greatest challenge of our lives here in the United States with, as she put it, the coming cataclysm that will first start off with an asteroid belt, and we will go through that for months. It'll start off slow, strike here and there. She did confirm that they are anticipating the first strike to be sometime in September. She actually said between September and November is the way she put it. I'd always been told September. And she said that in FEMA, they were told that there's nothing they can do. There's no way possible to move the numbers of people, the population, to any kind of safe area. And I'm going to be kind of maybe scattered because as I say these things, it makes me think of other things that she says as well. But she said that that the Russians built underground bunkers to be able to care basically to their entire population.
Right,
she said,
right.
But America didn't do that. She said they only built the underground bunkers to protect the elite. And she said, and because of that, there's no way possible for them to protect all the population. She said, so the virus was used to be able to keep the people locked in place so that when these things begin to happen, they've already got the fear factor set in for the people that, they're going to get sick, the people are dying. And she said, of course, the numbers are just exaggerated to make people more afraid. She said, your home will become your tomb. But she said that we would first see, like I said, you'll start seeing a strike here and there by an asteroid. She said it'll hit a populated city, will be the next type of asteroid event. She said also that she was told that as far as like with me living in Florida, she was told that she actually included Orlando, but she said Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville and Savannah, Georgia, will all be totally destroyed. She said that all the FEMA people have been instructed to purchase ham radios and get their license and learn how to use them because there will be no other form of communication. They were also instructed not to fly any type of commercial or private aircraft at all.
Beginning immediately.
Yes, that was effective immediately. That the risk are too great at this time of those planes going down. She also said that they do anticipate invasion. But that would
that's a good break point there. They didn't anticipate invasion. We'll get back to that after the break. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Visiting with Steve Ben-Nun. His website's IsraeliNewsLive.org. I say again, IsraeliNewsLive.org. Before the break, you were mentioning that the FEMA people are aware of imminent, well, I would say imminent, less than a year. Would that be accurate, invasion, Steve?
John, that's exactly right. The thing is that's been told to me not just by FEMA, but I'd gotten, of course, with my good friend that is an advisor to the president. We'd spoke at length by phone on multiple occasions, plus by email. But he had said to me that the government here expected civil war, but not only civil war, they were also actively preparing for an invasion from the south. We do know, and this has been confirmed by both sides, that there are Chinese troops in Mexico. They've been there for quite some time. The FEMA friend that I have said to me that the reason why the Chinese are in Mexico is that they're planning on coming in after the asteroids and pole ship have completed their course, which oddly enough, John, from some of the experts that I know on this subject there, the eastern part of Mexico will relatively be intact. It will survive this much better. Not the west. It's kind of like the San Andreas Fault that goes to the west through California. But
right.
So therefore, they're somewhat safe where they are, and that what I was told from the FEMA engineer is that after all the cataclysm takes place, that they're going to give it a little time for the looters and the patriots that are armed to fight it out and to expend as much of their ammunition as possible. Then they would come in from the south, the Russians would come in from the north, and they would basically take what is left. And I was also told that they will not take prisoners. They basically
that works both ways.
Themselves. Exactly. That's exactly right.
If that's what they want, that's what they're going to get.
Exactly.
The North Vietnamese High Command, they before Vietnam, they thought that they'd be fighting fat, lazy Americans who would easily surrender and give up under duress. That's not what they found out, was it? Though, was it, Steve?
No, that's exactly right.
Americans never surrendered in Vietnam ever.
And they may find out that the Americans, we know that there's going to be looting. There's no doubt about it. They may find out the American people, after such a calamity, will have more of a resolve to stick together and try to help one another than to do all the evil that they think that we will actually do. And in that case there, we won't be such a bunch of little disarmed or out of ammunition people that are just, I don't know how you call that, but you know what I mean. We would be better prepared to meet the challenge that we would be facing regardless. Because even these countries, Russia also will face a tremendous attack as well. Not attack, but as far as from the asteroids, they are going to be decimated pretty much as well. At least part of their country will be. So it's not just going to be a cupcake walk for them either, although they are better prepared for their civilization to survive these things. But John, let me step back and say this on that issue there, too. Russia built all these underground bunkers to protect their population, but my Pentagon source, who is a nuclear physicist, said that they are very concerned now whether or not they can survive in the bunkers because they had not anticipated the radiation belt that is causing the core of the Earth to heat up from within, which in turn is cracking the underground bunkers. And he said, and we've got many of our bunkers have been flooded with water that's coming in because naturally water is underground too. And as these things have cracked, they're filling up. And he said that a lot of the elite are afraid that if they go in there, they're going to die.
Well, I have a friend who has access to the American version, and he wants nothing to do with it. At the bottom of the next hour, I've got a nuclear physicist, a friend of mine, who's going to be my guest, Steve O'Neill, and he may have some follow-up on that, Steve.
I'll be interested to hear what he does say on that. But we're besides all this here, like I was saying, though, as far as the from the FEMA engineer, that they know that these things are going to happen, but here's what she described in detail what they're anticipating. I always envision that, like when we hear the stories of Planet X on all the conspiracy websites, that Planet X comes through and then a tail's dragging him behind it, like a tail in the cat, right? And then you get like that. But it's the other way around. It's the tail comes first, then comes the planet, and that's been confirmed by different people that what we call Nibiru or Planet X is actually a comet, but it's the size of a planet. It's what the Chilean astronomer Ferrada described as Herboculus. That's what's coming. And it's a little bit earlier than what people had thought. I know the scientists that had given me the memory stick that I give to Paul Begley, he had in his notes there estimated, and he did put the word estimated, December of 2023. But this is going to pass between the sun and the earth. They're saying between the end of March, early April of next year. And what's going to happen is that the earth will start, as we're already seeing NASA's reporting now, very near flying by asteroids. And it seems like completely nuts to hear about all these asteroids all of a sudden. 3 last month, 5 this month. Now they're talking about some coming in September and then some in October. And I think BP Earthwatch mentioned that there's going to be a strike in November on the Earth. So we're starting to hear more and more information about these things. And I don't know who's right, who's not. But she said that what would happen is you would slowly start seeing it, and then we would start getting hit here and there. But by the end of the year, it'll be like a storm that never seems to end. And she said in one part of the tail, though, there is thousands of little rocks. Now, my friend that's a contractor for the Pentagon said that he was told by the generals we're talking rocks about the size of basketballs. And she said it will rain like fire coming down out of the heavens. And she said that'll be a storm that doesn't want to seem to end. And that's going to be the worst part of that. And of course, the big ones are worse, than the smaller ones, because a lot of the smaller ones will burn up in the atmosphere, but you'll see it just coming down, just thousands of them.
Well, there's a formula. Mass times velocity equals energy. And a basketball-sized rock may not sound like a big deal, but if it's going 2,000 miles an hour, it gets to be a big deal pretty quick, don't it?
Yes, it does. Even if it ends up when it hits the ground that it's no bigger than a softball, I don't want to be nowhere near that thing, John. Just the impact is unbelievable. And I was told that you have to be about 40 feet below the ground to keep those from causing you, wiping you out.
Well, in our neighborhood here is one of the world's largest meteor craters. It's the Crooked Creek Meteor Crater, more than 3 miles in diameter. And There's a line of these large meteor craters, beginning with the well-known meteor crater Route 66 site there in Arizona, in an exact straight line going from the southwest to the northeast. There's about 5 or 6 of these very large craters. Obviously, they all struck about the same time. So there's plenty of precedence for good-sized rocks hitting this planet, isn't there?
Yes, there is, John. Very much so. And I know my Pentagon source that I know personally said that the other thing that's going to really be bad, but this will happen closer to the time when the planet comes through, is that our magnetosphere will drop. And that's really going to make it bad for us. Well, I was also told that we'll see 250-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, that's when the jet stream comes down to the surface of the planet. There's precedence for that also. In fact, in the Czech Republic, I believe about 10 years ago, that happened briefly for part of a day, knocking down a massive forest. You can tell it wasn't a tornado because all the trees were in a straight line as opposed to being all whipped around topsy-turvy. So there is precedence for that also. And, of course, the jet stream's up there 24/7, 365 anyway. And as long as it's 5 miles above our heads, we don't notice it unless you're in an airplane flying against it or with it. But when the jet stream comes to the surface of the planet, it causes some pretty severe problems, doesn't it?
It will definitely cause some severe problems. John, I was thinking about that, too, because they say that this system passed during the time when Moses was delivering the children of Israel out of Egypt. And I really began to think about that. I don't know exactly where the jet stream was back in those days there, but perhaps maybe the Red Sea was right in line where that jet stream was when it hits the ground, and maybe that was one of the reasons why they were able to cross on dry ground. 250-mile-an-hour wind would certainly help part the Red Sea. And, of course, they had the rocks raining down out of heaven then, too.
Yeah. Well, the biblical accounts are verified by other historical accounts written by and kept by people in South America, Northern Europe, and China, all of which had written records and calendars. Emanuel Velikovsky is the one that documented this. Velikovsky did something no archaeologist has ever taken the time to do. He reconciled the ancient calendars. You can't compare ancient events until you first reconcile the calendars. It can't be done. Once you reconcile the calendars, and I'll give you a crystal clear example, in the book of Isaiah, the Hebrew army needed another couple of 2-3 hours of daylight to win their battle, and they got it. And there's only one way that can happen. That's for the planet to roll over in space. So Velikovsky's reasoning was, if the sun didn't go down over the Sinai Desert when it was supposed to, therefore it could not have come up over China the following day when it was supposed to. And guess what? It did not. The Chinese had calendars. They left detailed written records. And it's a pretty big deal when the sun comes up 2 or 3 hours late. And, of course, they documented that. There's plenty of evidence that most biblical scholars don't want to hear about. They want to hear verification from ancient Chinese records, but it's there nonetheless.
Yes, absolutely it is, and that's some amazing information to be able to see. So we're basically, John, we're facing that once again, and from what I understand, basically around April, that's when everything will finally start to calm down. The waters will recede, and of course, the FEMA person has said the same thing that all my other sources have said. We're going to see massive cold displacement. Now, she did say one thing, though, John, that has been said by so many people that I had never had independently confirmed before, and that is the New Madrid fault will cause a separation. Southern Florida will go 200 feet beneath the ocean, and it'll be just sucked down. And but she said we will basically be divided as like two different countries from that point.
Right.
And of course,
the government's been preparing for this for since 1979, and
right.
The main capital will be Denver. The secondary and lesser capital will be Atlanta. And there'll be an inland sea about 200 miles wide where the Mississippi River Valley is right now.
Exactly. This is what they're preparing for, and of course, and I've known that as well. Like you said, John, they've been preparing for this for quite some time. We know that Colorado Springs is going to be the new capital of whatever's left, as well as Atlanta will be the eastern part, because they'll be divided by a massive sea at that point. And of course, she did say that, the FEMA people told her that we can't rescue the people. There's nothing we can do. How do you move all the people? They said, because all the coastal line areas, you will have millions that will die. And even Deagle.com, their website, that was, I'm not referred.
Well, Deagle's not a website. It's a think tank that their businesses doing what their clients pay them for. Fortune 500 companies pay them to find out what's going to happen in the future. That's what Deagle is.
Right. And they show that America by 2025 has 200 million population reduction.
Right.
I mean, John, what do we got? 367 million people in the United States, and we're going to be down to 167 roughly is about what we're supposed to go to.
Right. But two-thirds die off. Right. Oh, it's catastrophe beyond belief is what it is, right?
Right, and of course, where you're at, as you've been saying for years to the people, this is what is called "quote unquote" the FEMA safe zone. That's what they've determined. It's what my friends in the Pentagon and in the White House have said as well. That's the only safe area, including northern Arkansas, just a little bit of the eastern part of Kansas, Oklahoma, and they even say Nebraska will do very well, except for the winds will be massive in Nebraska. But other than that, but always keep in mind, and I was told to even when it comes to the Ozarks, they said that it doesn't mean that the rocks are not going to hit you. They say you got to keep it. So the thing about the Ozarks, the land mass is very thick, so it's impervious to. You're not going to have lava coming out of the ground. The ground's not going to crack open from earthquakes and things like that. And the elevation is high enough to where you don't have to worry about the floodwaters. So that's the advantage of that particular area, and you don't have the human factor.
The population density is very low,
yes.
in the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks. The largest city is Springfield, Missouri, a population 250,000. Most cities in the Ozarks are a few thousand people. A good-sized city in the Ozarks would be 5,000 or 6,000 people. Still very small. Steve Ben-Nun, his website is israelinewslive.org. Israelinewslive.org. Steve, I need to ask you, the FEMA engineer, do you have any comment about vaccinations being a humane way to eliminate Americans before they die of disease and starvation?
Well, on this particular FEMA individual, she didn't speak on that, but I know that we had a private conversation with Celeste Solom, and she had told my wife that this is why the government was doing the vaccines, was a euthanasia type of program. And that, yes, the government felt like that it would be better to just put you to sleep so you don't have to face what's coming.
Now, there's going to be, the vaccination, as I understand, the protocols are going to be an initial vaccine followed up by a second one about a month later. And apparently one by itself won't necessarily kill you. I don't know how the details, how that's going to work. But it takes the combination of the two to kill you, apparently, doesn't it?
And that you're right, John. And the other thing for the vaccination too is if you survive it, it's to be able to track you to find out where you're hiding at after all this is over with. So maybe they're not done making sure you were euthanized. Maybe they want to make sure. Well, we thought we did it. Let's make sure it worked.
Well, it's. You can't make. I mean, if this was in a science fiction book published 20 years ago, it would be dismissed as pure fantasy, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would, John. They would think we're all nutcases.
Right. The author would be thought of as somebody with a fantastic ability to make things up. But here it is in our face. Well, Steve, the invasion of something that's been left out. Prior to my belief, prior to the Russians and Chinese having men in uniform on the ground, we already have Russians and Chinese here covertly. Russian Spetsnaz who they're Caucasian with maybe a Texas accent, maybe a New York Bronx accent. The point being, they can, or the Johnny Carson Nebraska neutral accent, which is no accent at all. Point being, they can mix in, and you won't know that this is some guy who went to high school a few miles away, will you?
That's very true, John. And I've known about Russian troops being here in the United States since about around 2014. I was first told about this from a good friend of mine that's a Secret Service agent, and they were at that time they were in two places, California and Montana, and those that were in California would be moving to Montana. Isn't that kind of odd? Because this is where some of the strongest Patriot strongholds are as well, is in Montana.
Right. Well, they've focused their efforts on a couple, 2 or 3 population centers. It's a low population state, and most people are busy in Montana living their lives and doing cowboy stuff and whatever they do, as opposed to getting involved politically. So a relatively small group of people who are trained and motivated to take over politically can certainly do so, and they have. I've been aware of Russian presence in the United States, which includes Alaska, since I went back in the Special Forces in 1979, and we worked with the Alaska National Guard, who are the Eskimo Scouts, and they told us back in the 70s that they were encountering Russian Spetsnaz on the ground in Alaska in the 70s already. So this goes back more than 40 years, Steve.
Yes, it does. And of course, this, because of the pole shift and stuff, John, this is one of the reasons why when the invasion takes place, we're going to see the Russians are going to come over from the northern side, and which won't be so frozen at that point, I guess, and the Chinese from the south. But
prior to that, if I may interrupt you, the barefoot peasants from South America with AK-47s will be used as cannon fodder, won't they?
Yes, they will be. Yes, they will be.
I'm calling barefoot peasants they'll actually be soldiers. They'll be they won't be barefoot. They'll have boots, but they'll be peasant soldiers from most of the country south of our border. They'll be used as cannon fodder, and Russian generals really don't like to have to, or colonels, I should say, and captains don't like to have to write letters to the mothers of their deceased soldiers. They'd rather use up other people's soldiers, Cubans, or men from Nicaragua or wherever they might come from, as opposed to having their own soldiers die in combat, don't they?
That's exactly right. They've learned very much from the way that we have subverted other nations as well by using the local populace, and they're doing the exact same thing. There's enough communists down in that part of the region of the world, and no doubt we'll hire some of the Mexicans as well to be able to bring them across the border to do this too. So and that's what a lot of people don't realize, John. That's how they can also blend in with society so well there. All they got to do is send in the material, the arms and things, just like what was done in Syria with Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, those different groups there. All they are is just other Arabic fighting factions that are in that region that were willing to take up arms and fight the battle, to get a few of the greenbacks to be able to pay them with.
Right,
and,
right.
And you don't need a whole lot of pesos either down there.
Well, this brings back to the meeting in May of last year, May 2019, in Chicago. The leaders of most countries south of our border, except El Salvador, which is an ally of ours, meeting in Chicago covertly to discuss what we believe was the final invasion plans and who's going to get what, how they're going to split up the booty. The tremendous wealth that is within the United States. I said at the time that wouldn't be done 4 or 5 years before the event, maybe a year or two before the event. That's when that kind of meeting would take place, wouldn't it, Steve?
Yes, that would seem to be more logical for that. And it seems like to me, John, they're ready. They already know. And FEMA engineers said to me that the Russians and Chinese, they're just interested only in the natural resources that are left. Now, I actually sat down yesterday with my uncle, who is a retired former chief police professor at university and also with the FBI. And he said that after the cataclysmic events that we will see unfold, that they may also do this in the guise of other nations trying to bring in humanitarian aid, but actually is just nothing but a complete takeover of what's left.
Well, that's right. Well, that's how it would be portrayed initially.
Exactly.
Especially,
but we're resistors, so
right.
You have to deal with the resistors. So
right.
We don't need your help. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Well, Leon, I can hear your brain exploding in the background. What are your thoughts, sir?
I'm thinking, are they going to portray it to the South Americans or Mexicans that you're getting Aztlan back? Colorado, Arizona, Texas, California. Is that going to be their ploy to get them not only the money but also the land?
That was, it's funny you say that, Leon, because that was one of my thoughts as well, that for them, it is the incentive that at one time they held some of these territories and that they're going to feel like, oh, wow, we're only getting back what belongs to us. But at the same time, in reality, they're not. It wouldn't be the case in the first place. So
right.
It's amazing what people will die for, though.
Correct. And then have you heard anything about that I think it was Nicaragua that you talked about, El Salvador, is they're actually standing up to the Japanese and the Russians coming across their border. I haven't heard anything about that. I don't know if mainstream media has suppressed that, or has it just been they've just not been doing anything in the last 3 or 4 months?
That Leon, I was not even aware of that. So that went beyond my radar.
Oh, okay. And
There's
when you were talking about
lots of moving pieces on the chessboard, isn't there?
Can you elaborate a little bit about that one? Because, of course, back when I worked with CIA, that's what we were dealing with was Nicaragua. We were just making sure they had plenty of guns down there for the Contras. But yeah, I'm very curious about that, of what actually was going on there. So do we have Russians coming across as well, or?
I remember the Chinese acquired the Panama Canal, and I thought that was going to be their staging platform, along with there are several deep water ports in Mexico that the Chinese have used through corruption to, bring in container ships of people. So I was thinking they would use the Panama Canal because they already officially own that, and it's much easier to do that when you already have millions of shipping containers there. But I was curious, are they using the southern countries now just as staging places and, basing their attack on the incoming asteroids and things like that, or are they going to do it prior? And see, this is all about timing for them, because if they go early, they look like the opposing force, and if they go late, then we've already shut down the border. So
so yes, part of that I did know already. Okay, I didn't equate the part about Nicaragua was the problem for me, but yes, the Chinese are already there. They have been there, from what I've been told, for some time, only waiting for the event to transpire, and that began a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Because I remember I was a friend of mine that was sharing that information with me. I want to say about 2 years ago, that they were, and when I say Chinese soldiers coming in, like John said, they'll use a lot of the local forces, but then you have your commanders and stuff that come in that direct what's going on, because the Chinese are not just going to throw out a bunch of money and say, oh, by the way, you guys take care of it, and then not make sure it's being oversaw properly. Well, just like we would do as well. We send in that, but we also have our special forces on the ground and commanders to make sure that the locals are carrying out the battle plans according to directive. And they've actually leaked out some videos like that before too. I think people would find interesting to look at online, where they shove the guy up to the corner of the house to fire, not just hide behind the wall. Get out and shoot, you retard. So you know it is. You ain't been in battle, you're scared, and you're back, but you stay behind the wall. They throw them out there. Shoot.
I think about the pictures of the Palestinians, that they have the same mentality. Let's stand behind the wall, and sometimes you see them getting pushed out into the fray.
Yes. So, oh my gosh. One thing, John, I'll tell you something that I started. I just posted it today on our website, because one thing that got to bother me, especially with things we're sharing on our channel, I am getting hundreds and hundreds of emails now of people that they're afraid, they don't know what to do. Especially, you've got single moms, elderly people. You'll have widows and things like that. And we had been working with 2 different widows to try to help them with all these things that are going on. Of course, we have no place to go yet. But, we're still trying to do something.
We're working on it.
Yeah. And but the thing is that so what I did is I created a little forum. Now, of course, it's pretty much, it's at your own risk. You hate to be blunt about it, but we're doing that so that people that are in what they feel like is a very awkward position, they could post on there, especially in areas where they might live on the coast. So, like, I have one lady that's handicapped that lives in New York. So you can post in there, but don't give too much of your private information, just an email address. And then and the people that have the ability to maybe help somebody, I ask them not to post, but go in there and see who needs help. And if they're near you, if you can offer to help them out. So trying
that sounds
to create
like a good
forum
plan. Hold that thought. We got a break. We'll be right back. My friend Steve O'Neill is supposed to join us here in about 5 minutes. I'm going to ask Steve Ben-Nun if you can stay with us and have a 4-way conversation. Steve O'Neill is a very dear friend of mine, a nuclear physicist, and his perspective and knowledge I think, will add to our conversation, gentlemen. So, Steve, can you stick with us after the bottom of the hour?
Yeah, I think I can for a little bit.
Oh, okay. All right. If you have to scoot, then scoot. But time is of the essence, and that cannot be overemphasized, can it, Steve?
No, it cannot be overemphasized. John, I constantly quote you. You're 10 years too late. But at the same time, as we face this, there's so many people, John, that don't believe it. And, I've got a lot of friends that believe in flat earth, and these guys really don't believe it. And that's what's really sad. And here's what's even bad. And I've never said it on my channel.
It's 7:24 p.m. in Pakistan right now, by the way.
Okay, and here's the whole thing, though. I was told that whole theory was created by the government. And the reason it was created was, and of course, I know they'll say, no, we know it's in the book, it's in the Bible, it's this and that and everything. Which I know a lot of times they don't understand the Hebrew language, they don't translate it right, no way. But that's a different issue.
Okay.
But they'll use other issues. But I know the government set this up. I was told by friends that I have there, they created this so that when this stuff was coming, they wouldn't believe it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And they create a lot of those, and you know that, John. They create a lot of different types of things that appeal to whichever group they need, so that when the time comes, just like the coronavirus thing, they make it look worse than what it really is, so that you're so scared to go anywhere that when the time comes, you're afraid that you're more afraid of dying of the coronavirus than you believe the guy saying, well, by the way, asteroid's going to land on your house tomorrow, and no, I can't leave. I'll die of the coronavirus. That's the way the mentality is.
I know,
people.
I know. Well, gentlemen, my friend Steve O'Neill is with us. Steve, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good to be with you again.
Steve, we're going to have a four-way conversation. That would be you, myself, Steve Ben-Nun. His website is israelinewslive.org, and my friend Leon Green. And give people a three-sentence bio here, Steve, so people have an idea who you are and why you're with us.
Well, my original work was in nuclear engineering. I was Unit 1 reactor engineer in Russellville in the 80s. It was a reactor identical to 3 Mile Island at the time. We happened to handle it pretty well. And then later I wound up working for the government in the Trident missile program doing radiation testing.
Okay.
Since then, I've been out and independent and consulting and
would
all
it
over.
Be accurate? What people like to have a handle on people. Would it be accurate to say you're a nuclear physicist or a nuclear scientist, Steve? Would that be an accurate statement?
Scientist, technically speaking, engineer, but scientist works.
Okay, engineer. Well, we'll look at those as synonyms. I don't know how much you heard of our earlier conversation, but we're basically focusing on what's coming the next 12 months, which will be severe, violent Earth changes, including good-sized rocks beginning to hit our planet, and possibly as early as September, maybe no later than November, going through March of next year. A pole shift, which you and I have talked many times about, Steve. And, of course, along with that, the Russians and Chinese making their move to conquer the United States. So that's basically where we are. And we have a bottom-of-the-hour break, and the four of us will be back after the break. Stay tuned. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 21st day of July. My website is thelibertyman.com. We are doing something I've never done before as a radio talk show host. I have three guests with me. My friend Leon Green, my friend Steve Ben-Nun, and my friend Steve O'Neill. And the topic, of course, of what's coming at us over the next 12 months, actually less than 12 months. We believe that rocks could start hitting our planet in 6 weeks. It may be several months. There's lots of issues moving forward all at the same time. Steve Ben-Nun, aren't there, sir?
Yes, there is, John, and that's the unfortunate of this whole nature of everything is that it's going to be either back to back or all at the same time. And from what it looks like to me, we'll have civil unrest, rocks hitting, and then all-out war. But in the Far East, the war it begins before then. And from what I was told on that one there, John, that's because they're trying to secure the safer parts of the world, and they've got to do it now. This is one of the reasons for the overthrow of Iran.
Right. And that's the reason for the colonization of Central Africa. China needs space for tens of millions of people. Steve O'Neill's work has focused a lot on the coming violent earth changes, hasn't it, Steve?
Yes. John, it would be awfully nice if we had James McCanney, Joel Scalzo, and Dane Wigington on line too. We'd have a heck of a conference.
Yeah, that would be neat. But all these issues, we are the generation, all of us listening here, we're the generation that will be experiencing this firsthand, won't we, Steve O'Neill?
Well, it looks like it. It sure looks like it. I had written George Norrie, had not heard back from him regarding the virus situation in particular, and I see it in context of a much larger picture. This is a biologic, whether it's been deliberately released or not. The point I made with George and the state senator up in Arkansas, too, went on to the governor with it, is that it doesn't matter whether it was released deliberately or not. We're making these weapons. They're intended to be used. and this is about the time for it. There's a larger agenda going on, obviously, and one of the dynamics that I've been looking at for some time, and all but predicting, was that given the Earth change issues, and here again, I refer to Dane Wigington on this matter. We're currently in an ELE. We've lost most of the life on Earth already. We don't recognize it yet. The insects are, 80% gone. The ocean's 2/3 gone. The plankton's 2/3 gone. It's happening very quickly, and we're at the rate we're currently going. If you do an extrapolation, 2026 will be zero. Obviously, that won't happen precisely, but my guess is that, order of magnitude speaking, that within the next couple of years or so, we will hit an insolvent condition in our food supply and in our biologic diversity. This is happening very rapidly. In terms of the global agenda, Geneva and so forth, Bank of International Settlements, those 8,000 people that control most of that, I have been looking for a control point in which they would pull the trigger. And in other words, they're going to set themselves up so that they're in the best position, and they will try to blame nature. And I think this virus, either if it happened to be released accidentally early, it's still in the time frame in which they can make use of it. It doesn't really matter. It is what it is. It's here. Also, the way that the virus has been handled by government, only several who've done it right. Ours is not one of them. Trump apparently, and I think Trump I think he means well. He has many merits. The thing is, I think he's made some major mistakes, and I also think his hands are tied. I think somebody's a lot bigger than him handling this. And when it comes to Fauci, well, I'll let Judy Mikovits.
Well, she's told the tale on Fauci pretty thoroughly. Yeah.
Yeah, she sure has, John. And in 2017, that's 3 years ago, he made a statement, and I have the recording, in which there would be a surprise pandemic in the next several years during this administration. What? Now it has context. Also, the way it's been handled, and he was caught red-handed and admitted it, that he lied to the public about the use of the value of the masks. He said eventually no, and then changed it. And he said, well, I did it so that we could keep a supply for the professional people. I have a very definitive picture on the value of the masks, where they're needed and where they're not needed. That's another discussion for probably another time. But it's a very valuable one, because I think the dynamics of the virus are very similar to the dynamics of a nuclear reactor or bomb in terms of dealing with them in the human population, but also in the body. There's a criticality involved in both in the immune system and also in the multiplication in the population. And once you see it in that stochastic perspective, suddenly it becomes very obvious rather what to do, what not to do, and also that it's an inexact science. You're after a general effect. That is to bring the virus to subcriticality in the population, also in your body, and that has several ways of being accomplished. Right now, today's discussion, though, is in the overall picture, not so much specifically the virus. And John, I would agree. I don't know. The astrophysical threat has been a long-standing discussion, and it's of course very hard to verify. Of course the Nibiru issue you've been addressing for a long time. I think the Earth changes. First of all, there's a lot of discussion about the Maunder minimum, which is about as irrelevant as a hangnail in the presence of a heart attack. And the bottom line is, right. I think that our ecological collapse is much more immediate, and that any downward trend due to a solar minimum is irrelevant. It's a second-order term. Here again, I wish we could get some people together, even Martin Armstrong, in the socioeconomics issue. His computer model is exceptional, and that's whole other story. There are some brilliant men out there who need to be brought into a nouveau peer review process in which we can John, the public needs a straight answer. They need a clear
right.
leadership.
Well, Steve, and I need to interrupt you, sir. I first of all, I completely agree with the need for that kind of forum on one hand. On the other, the time for public forums of that nature is probably come and gone, unfortunately.
Another issue.
Been canceled. You know, Steve Quayle's had to cancel his thing and make it a internet-based thing. Pastor Paul Begley, same thing, and that's our future. Unfortunately, I don't like it, but that seems to be the future. As long as we have access to the internet and electricity, over the next few months, that's what we're going to be left with, I believe. Steve Ben-Nun, do you see anything different happening over the next few months in terms of getting word out?
Yeah, the thing is that here's the issue. They're using of course they're saying that the coronavirus is spreading and going out of hand all over again. I knew that 6 months ago they were going to do it, but that makes it difficult, of course, naturally, because they're going to say you can't meet, you can't have public forums, things like that. But the reality of it is, it's all to keep people locked in place because of the events that they're anticipating that are on the horizon.
Absolutely. Well, I forwarded documents to all you gentlemen this morning, and Steve O'Neill just recently in the last few minutes. I'm not going to go into the details of the document, other than if it's real, it outlined 10 years ago what we're experiencing right now with the Chinese flu. Hopefully we will find out if these documents are real or not, and very, very quickly. Leon Green, I consider you an expert when it comes to preparedness and getting ready. And time is short. And Leon, would it be a fair statement that it's difficult to get some of the more critical things right now, such as long-term storage food, water filters, ammunition? Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember in March how the shelves were being depleted, and I was taking pictures and just total disbelief in how people were just cavalier about it. Some people were crazy and others weren't. And then, the one question I wanted to ask of Steve O'Neill was, based on these incoming projectiles, is the American strategy to just, since we can't bury these nuclear reactors, are they going to take them offline, thereby exacerbating the power grid in August and September, when people are using AC in California, and is going to start crashing the grid internationally because of that, just like Canada did years ago? So what is their expectation? If they take it offline prematurely, then they're going to crash the grid. If they wait till they get hit, then they're going to have nuclear exposure. So what is the official policy?
That's an excellent question, and in fact, I've conferred with Dane about it some, because there's another threat that the grid can go down for a number of reasons. And one of the real concerns is that the maintaining local power long enough to get control of things. When a reactor shut down, it goes down to about 5% of the equivalent full power, whatever it was at. Let's say it's at full power, 1,000 megawatt electrics at 3,000 megawatts thermal. Shuts down, if it's been running for a while, it's 150 million watts. They've got to get out of the fuel for quite some time, and they have to keep the reactor coolant pumps on, and the system, in one piece. Now, I've been tempted to get a hold of my old alma mater down in Russellville and ask them what the current plan is in case they lose off-grid power permanently. I don't think they have enough diesel for the diesel generators to offload both cores. See, Fukushima, well, that's a whole other story, but there's a concern that nuclear reactors will suddenly become Fukushimas if we lose general grid power and have an EMP or whatever, or it's Carrington. My view is that, listen, this is completely preventable, like a few other things have been, including this virus issue. But what you have to do, you have to have a plan in place that at any time that if you are tripping offline and the grid's down forever, you have the ability to go into a refueling outage and offload all of your cores into the spent fuel pool and to shuffle it in such a way that you you essentially maximize thermal removal. The spent fuel pool doesn't require active circulation. The reactor would not be in danger, and the pool could go off for a long time with minimal maintenance. This is what they need to do, and to be honest with you, I don't know if they have. There are emergency plans, but whether the nation as a whole and really the world has this in place, I don't know. Given the way we handled Fukushima on this end, ridiculous. Well, I mean, everything that majors happens has been mishandled by governments. You begin to wonder if it isn't on purpose. We could do something about this, and it would require a aggressive plan, emergency plan, that you would have enough diesel fuel. I think propane's better because it doesn't go bad, and you wouldn't have to recycle it. But this can be done. That's the point. It can be done. We can prevent the problem if we are proactive about it. It wouldn't cost tremendously. It'd be expensive, but not against the risk.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. This would be an interesting question.
Well, Steve Ben-Nun, in your discussions with various people, have there been any discussion about how to safely and properly take these nuclear power plants offline?
You know, John, they haven't discussed as far as taking them offline, but I did do nuclear physics, physics, health physics myself. And, you know, the problem I see is that you get, for example, down in Florida, you've got Florida Power has Turkey, something, I forget now the name of the one. You got the Port St. Lucie plant on Hutchinson Island. You know, these plants here, I know they're designed to be able to withstand a 747 crashing into the side of them, but whether or not, well, let's put it this way: if Florida gets sucked, as they say, 200 feet up beneath the sea, that'll be the best containment for them at that point. So in that case, that wouldn't be a bad idea. But when it comes to other places in the country, I don't know how they're going to fare up to the tremendous shaking of the earth. I mean, look at what happened, like you guys mentioned in Fukushima. That was a disaster, and of course they play it down, but it's a major disaster. Same thing with Ukraine. Of course, that was a different issue. It wasn't from natural disaster, but so I see it becoming a really major nightmare for people living anywhere within. Couldn't say for sure, but 50-mile radius.
Downwind is the most dangerous thing. Right. Well, Steve O'Neill, can you reach out to your alma mater and get some findings and report back to us in a week or so?
I can give it a shot. It's been a while since I've talked to those folks. By the way, different reactor sites are licensed differently depending on their seismological and other environmental data. There are a number of reactors. If we had violent shaking in areas where they're not earthquake-prone, it's possible, very possible, that the reactor coolant systems could be breached. And once that happens, once you run out of the borated water storage tank or anything else you've got, you're in serious trouble. Ocean water, but here again, the reactor buildings were designed to contain a major, substantial explosion or meltdown inside the system and to hold it in. But the whole object is to keep the reactor from overheating and get the fuel offloaded if you can. If we shake, those reactors are gone and everybody around them. That's a different matter. Serious problem if that happens.
It is absolutely. Well, gentlemen, what we're doing right now is a first for me as a radio talk show host, which I've been since for 25 years, and it's been a fascinating discussion to have the four of us together and discuss this matter. And I'll be talking to the three of you privately to see what your thoughts are about moving forward and doing some similar things in the future, if the three of you would agree to it. And time is short. I've changed my programming here with my bumper music. I'm looking at maybe making some changes in my show itself, which is premature to talk about what those might be. But I want to do what I can to inform as many people as we can in whatever time we have left. It reminds me of a scene from one of my favorite films, The Day After Tomorrow, where the scientist in Scotland knows that he's going to die within hours, and he tells the scientist in the United States, save those that you can.
Listen, we need to do the best we can, everybody, John.
That's where we are.
You.
That's where we are. Save the ones that we can. We won't save everybody. That's a given. But every life saved is certainly justified in our efforts, isn't it, gentlemen?
Yes,
Absolutely.
it is.
So let's move forward, the four of us, to save the ones that we can, reach out to as we can to get the word out to as many Americans, and this is a worldwide audience. We have people all over the planet listening to us, not just Americans, but all over the planet. And each country, and we have you international listeners, you're welcome to call in and ask questions, and we'll answer them to the best of our ability, whether you're in Norway or Hong Kong or wherever it might be. We'll answer your questions to the best of our ability, won't we, gentlemen?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Everybody in the world is important. But everybody, we want to help as many as we can. I agree with you, John.
All right. We're pretty much out of time. I'm going to ask each individual for a closing comment. We'll start with Leon Green. Your closing comment for our discussion, sir.
Oh, there's so much to say, but in essence, because time is short, and based on what Steve Ben-Nun said earlier, there's 16 scenarios, and we've only seen 2 or 3 of them. I can't imagine what the other 14 are, and so we cannot procrastinate. We need to take action now and get the supplies we need as soon as possible, and get our mutual assistance groups together so we can actually help the community help each
Absolutely. Steve O'Neill, your parting comments to wrap this up, sir.
Well, of course, the parting comments are the opening comments for all the conversations we're going to have. I'm looking forward to it very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Steve Ben-Nun, your parting comments, sir.
John, I agree with you 100% that we've got to get the people the best we can, better educated about what's going on, what's coming. And with that being stated, my wife, as she was listening also, and I know she's already asked you to come on, John, and Steve O'Neill, and we'd even like to get Leon on as well on our program. We reach millions, and so we're and just growing rapidly. So we really want to try to get people educated. Many people think it's just fear-mongering, but we're in a serious hour. Absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, I don't want to be cut off by the music. I'll be talking to the 3 of you privately, and let's tentatively look at doing this next Tuesday, if the 3 of you are available, gentlemen.
Works for me.
Okay.
That'll work.
Okay. Leon, Steve. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking. We are looking at very perilous times here, ladies and gentlemen. There's some interesting educational material at Steve's website. That would be IsraeliNewsLive.org. At my website, at thelibertyman.com, Put it in your browser. Do not use a search engine. And tell your friends and neighbors that you want in to get up to speed to listen to today's show. That would be Tuesday, the 21st of July. It'll be on YouTube later today. Republic Broadcasting's website, the Republic Broadcasting Network website. And we will move forward together, all of us, worldwide, to get the information out, to help people get informed, and help them save lives, literally save lives. That's what we're in the business for here, saving lives. And this is the real deal. Thank you very much. That's it for the day.